Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. I hope you've all had a fantastic week. To everybody who submitted a question, I thank you all. I'm going to do my best to get to as many questions as possible. If you have a question you would like me to answer on next week's Q&A video, simply put it in the comment section below. If you want to support what I do here on the channel, there are a variety of links that you can follow in the video description, whether they are links to the music that I make with my band Ragdoll, my Patreon, or a variety of affiliate links. You can also join the Discord server and come and hang out and chat about just about anything you like. Questions? Let's go. What would I recommend to a decent rhythm guitar player who is looking to expand their playing into playing some lead guitar? The first thing that I would say is don't be too terrified about diving in. There are so many great resources out there that they can almost have the opposite effect, and they might discourage you. You go from, well, I know I want to do this. How do I actually even get started? What I would ask you, if you're going down that journey, identify some players whose style of lead playing you really like the sound of and begin by learning some of their solos. For example, if you're a massive Van Halen fan, but you've never tried to play one of Eddie's solos, maybe start with something like the tapping section from Eruption before you do the intro tapping to something like Hot for Teacher, or start with the solo in Ain't Talking About Love before you have a crack at the solo in, say, something like Panama or Unchained. So identify the players you want to try to sound like and basically just go out and learn as much as you can of their material. Basically rip them off, try to incorporate them into your own style. And I know there's an Eric Johnson video where they basically say, you know, they went on and they said, hey, I love the way this person sounded playing rhythm, this person sounded playing clean, this person sounded with lead stuff. I just tried to mash them all together. That's how you can go about developing your own style. Another great way to do it is to find yourself a good teacher who can both kind of set you exercises and explain concepts and also just kind of encourage you along the way, because it is pretty easy to feel like you're hitting a brick wall, whether it's with learning new material, being exposed to new material, or with some of the technical aspects which come along with that. So that would be my advice to start out. Where to put a graphic EQ pedal in your signal chain. I have done a video explicitly about this with the old Boss EQ20, essentially exploring pre-gain EQ and post-gain EQ. And if you've seen that video, you will know that they are drastically different. Essentially, the too long didn't read explanation of it is using a graphic EQ before a gain stage is kind of going to shape the character of the gain. Are you going to boost bass or cut bass? Are you going to boost the mid-range or smooth out the high end or something like that? Normally, I like to cut a little bit of bass and boost some mid-range going into an already crunchy amp. That's kind of the classic tight and hot boost that you would get. But if you put something like that with those same settings after a gain stage, you're going to get a radically different result, because distortion is a very non-linear process. So I would recommend you go and find that video on my channel, have a listen to some examples, and I guess the ideal situation is probably some kind of EQ before your gain stage and in the loop, something like the Boss EQ20 or the Source Audio EQ2 will let you do both at once. This is an interesting question. If I'm playing through a particular style of amp, for example, if I play through an orange amp, are there particular licks that I'm going to play through that I might not play on another type of amp? I think this would apply to guitars as well. You know, if I pick up a Strat, kind of the first thing that I do is play funky stuff on it. Whereas if I pick up a 7-string or my PRS in drop C, I immediately start chunking away on the low strings. If I was going to play through something like a Marshall, you know, the first thing that I do is play a big A chord. And I ask myself, does it sound like AC/DC? Because that's my reference there. Something like an orange, I would normally kind of dial in for like a doomy, fuzzy, stonerish kind of tone. So I might end up playing something like, you know, Burial's Blade by The Sword, which is a great song, by the way, or maybe some Sleep style stuff. Or again, maybe I just crack an A chord and try to make it sound like AC/DC. One of the best AC/DC style tones I ever heard was years ago in a music shop. One of the people working there had bought in their orange AD30. They had an SG that they plugged into it and they started playing some AC/DC and it sounded amazing. If I was playing like a Fender Deluxe Reverb, I might do some Stevie Ray or some Hendrix style stuff to start out, just to give me that kind of ballpark tone. Just as I sat down to edit this, a buddy of mine sent me a message and said, "Hey Leon, here's a spicy one for your Q&A. Thoughts on the Pantera reunion with Zakk Wylde and Charlie Benante?" Firstly, if they're doing it, which it looks like they're doing it, feels like you should do it with Zakk. Obviously, Zakk and Dimebag apparently were pretty good friends, and you know Zakk would put in the effort and the time to nail that stuff. There's also some videos up of Phil and Rex playing with Black Label Society. I saw a clip of them doing I'm Broken, and it sounded pretty good. Didn't sound like Pantera because you didn't have Dimebag's guitar sound in there, but I'm not really 100% sure Pantera fans are going to be super happy about this, especially if they're calling it Pantera. If you called it, you know, a tribute or, you know, the kind of final tour or a remembrance tour or something like that, without Dime and without Vinny, it's clearly not the same band. I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of PR coming out now that they've announced it, talking about how, you know, it's not the same band and they just want to get out and play these songs. And I think if you're being cynical, you could definitely look at this as a bit of a cash grab. It's been talked about for years and years. Zakk has talked about how they would happily do it. So look, from the perspective of these songs actually being played by some of the people involved, it's going to be pretty good. I think there's great players involved, but I think the average Pantera fan is probably going to be a little bit angry about this. If you've seen the announcement and you've got thoughts about it, feel free to just blast away in the comments. As always, be respectful and don't be a dick about things, but feel free to voice your thoughts on that reunion, and we'll get on with the rest of the Q&A. How would I rank the 5 positions on a Strat style selector switch? I'm going to say that we're using a 3 single coil guitar here, and we've got neck and middle, middle and bridge, and then bridge. The neck pickup on a Strat is absolutely my go-to for just about everything. Sounds great clean, sounds great dirty. You can solo on it, you can play a rhythm guitar on it, it just works. The neck and middle, I think, is probably the most unique Strat position, along with the bridge and middle. I would use the neck and middle more for kind of like Hendrixy stuff. I would use the bridge and middle if I was playing funk stuff. The middle position, I always pretty much exclusively think of Robin Trower. So if I'm jamming on bridge size, middle pickup on the Strat, and then the bridge pickup on my 77 Strat anyway, which is a Sir ML, sounds fantastic with a lot of gain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a King's X riff on all 5 positions with the same sound. Let me know your favorite position in the comments below. We talked about Star Wars last week with the Strat and Strat Wars. So many good puns. Have I tried a PRS Silver Skywalker yet? That's the pun of the week. Well done. You win the internet for today. I've only played a Silver Sky for about 2.5 minutes at a music store right around the time that they came out, and it left an impression on me for 2 reasons. One, the neck felt really, really nice, and the way this particular guitar was set up, the action was way higher than I liked. So I would be pretty keen to try it, you know, a Silver Sky or a Silver Sky SE, and really have it set up the way I like it. It was easily one of the comfiest Strat necks that I've ever felt, and from my understanding and seeing clips out there, they've really tried to voice the pickups on there to just kind of capture, you know, that like perfect L series Fender thing without having to pay $30,000 for it. I mentioned the Strings Attached Festival happening in Margaret River here in Western Australia in a couple of months. If anybody remembers my vlog from the very first one, you know that I got the chance to jam with the one and only Larry Mitchell. Shout out to Larry if you're not familiar with their work and their playing. One of the finest guitar players on the planet. I did get the chance to jump up and jam with Larry, and it was incredible fun. Sometimes when you're in those kind of situations where you get up for a jam song with somebody. It can kind of be stressful because, you know, a lot of the time you don't have your rig or you don't want to step on anybody else's toes. So you're kind of a bit sheepish with it. But Larry was just amazing and so welcoming. And I got the chance to also jam with another great player, Alex Kalino Hoi from Singapore. Check their stuff out. Insane player. That was so much fun. And yeah, shout out to Larry as well. I really miss him and I hope that they can make it over to Australia again very soon. Hopefully you caught my video with the Suckerless Audio Room number 40, a great Marshall in a box pedal. I did do a video last year with the Origin Effects Revival Drive Hot Rod. What would I go for the ultimate Marshall in a box? I should really do a video about this, and I probably will do a video with them side by side because they both sound amazing. I like that on the Room 40 you've got a kind of plexi mode and a 2203 mode, and I like that you've got bass, middle, treble, and presence on there, as well as a variac control. The Revival Drive, to me, is mostly Marshall, but there is a bit of Vox DNA in there. There is basically kind of like a negative feedback control on there. So you turn it all the way down and you can get some lovely Vox style breakup on there. You've got bass and treble controls on there. So you can get more mids by turning them both down or kind of less mids by cranking them both up. You really have to know how to use that. And I like that the Revival Drive has like an analog power amp circuit in there more or less, so the sound of like a loaded down power amp, and it works great into IRs as like an analog amp sim. So you can go and check out both videos and decide for yourself, and in the future I will do a video comparing them because they both sound pretty epic. What am I using as a power supply in the studio, especially when I am demoing pedals? Well, this is my little studio pedal board. It's a Temple Audio Solo. I recently bought two of these, one for my FM3 board that I use live, and I love that. This one's more a studio board where I can clip stuff to it with their quick connectors. They work pretty awesome. And I've got a kind of patch style thing on the side, and everything's pretty neat and tidy underneath it. But I've got their Hi-5 Mod power supply, which is made by, I hope I'm saying this right, Chucks. Pretty much the best power supply I've got here for pedals anyway, because you can set different isolated voltages on each output. And I really like that there's RCA style connectors on this, so you can actually kind of get that clipped in. It feels a lot more secure. This is a pretty awesome little board. I should do a video about it. If you've got specific questions about that, as always, let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. As always, thank you so much for all of your questions. If you've got any more comments or suggestions, put them in the comment section below. If you want to ask a question on next week's video, put them in the comment section as well. A reminder, in 3 weeks, Ragdoll are doing a show in Melbourne, and then in Sydney. We'll be on the East Coast for that weekend. I'm really looking forward to it. I look forward to seeing some of you out there in real life. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next time. And as always, thank you.